Morning Artesia Radio Show. I'm Gene Dow, and Isaiah is on the other side of the wall over there pushing all the buttons. We have Representative Jim Townsend with us. He's the you're still the minority leader in the House, if I'm not mistaken, Jim. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. And so he's in Santa Fe. We're about mid-session, maybe a little past the midway point of the 60-day session that the legislature is going through right now, and it's been a challenging year with the COVID and all the restrictions that have been imposed on the state, the strains on the budget because of the effects on the economy and so forth. And before we get into the kind of the legislative bills that you've been keeping an eye on and working on, I did want to ask you a little bit about has there been any effort at all to put a plan forward to kind of say, in an emergency situation, the governor has emergency powers, but after a certain point in time, she needs to get the legislature involved? I know there were a couple of efforts to try to get some things done in that regard. Have those gone anywhere, or is the governor, whoever the governor is, the ultimate authority of power in all of New Mexico?
Well, currently in New Mexico, under the Emergency Health Acts and the Emergency Act, the governor wields sole power. There are a couple of bills, one in the Senate, one in the House, that are working forward to limit that power and to cause her to convene the legislature after 30 or 45 days in order to get buy-in to what she's doing. I read an article the other day that was troublesome that apparently she said, I didn't hear it with my own ears, but she said that if that bill passed, she would veto it. So we're going to have to address that. But yes, there are talks, and I'm hopeful in the end something will be done that's reasonable.
Now, she said early on that the red to green map, now the red to turquoise map, was in response to Republicans and other opponents of her plans prior to that to take into consideration differences between counties. In other words, people had been saying, why are we treating all of the state of New Mexico when issues are predominantly in this part of the state or that part of the state? Now that she has the red to green turquoise map, we're not happy with that. We're complaining about that. As you've seen this thing evolve and develop, and now we have the more counties in yellow and more counties in green, what's your opinion on that? How has that played out, and how would you like to see it change maybe in the future if something like this were to happen again?
Well, our senior caucus member is a lady named Jane Padrell Colbert, and she's been around here for a number of years, and she's a wise old bird about a lot of stuff. And she said the other day in caucus, which caused me to chuckle, she said, I wish the governor would quit playing with her crayons and get this damn state opened up. And I thought it was, when you think about it, it's very applicable to our issues. We've been shut down for way too long. And it's a plan that's still kind of coming around. I've had a jillion calls in the last 24 hours from people in Eddy County about, the results yesterday. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to ascertain what's happened. I mean, we had 3,000 kind of test results hit in one lump sum. We had 100 reported positive. We're trying to figure out, when did they occur? Should they have been in the last reporting period? If they were in the last reporting period, would we have been yellow? Everybody knows we didn't do that kind of testing. I mean, something's askew here, and so we're working on that. We're gonna get to the bottom of it, but there's nothing this state needs worse right now to get our kids back in school and get our businesses open. I think the fact that the vaccine's out, I've had both shots. I've heard that there's, all sorts of bad things, might be, but, the virus is kind of a bad thing too. So I thought it was reasonable for people that are out and about. I've been tickled to death to see what has happened over in Lee County. They've been very aggressive getting their vaccine into their teachers, into their schools. It's been very effective. Their rates came straight down. I think our hospital in Artesia has done an amazing job getting the vaccine out. Memorial Medical Practice has been right there leading the charge.
Right.
So we're going to get there. This change in the color guard every time the rules change is aggravating as can be. It reminds me of the cartoons with Lucy and the football. We are always changing the dang rules, and Charlie Brown's never going to get a shot at it if we keep this up.
Yeah. 67 of the cases that they announced yesterday were in the Artesia zip code, and 23 in the Carlsbad zip code, and it was 100. And for weeks, for days, it had been a much smaller number. So, yeah, a lot of folks do have questions on that. And as a result, Eddy County is red still. Lee County's yellow, and Chaves County and Lincoln County are yellow. And you mentioned the hospital, and, of course, they're getting 2,000 plus doses a week for the next few weeks to be able to distribute to people. So they really have stepped up to try to get as many people vaccinated who want to get vaccinated as possible.
Well, 2,000 shots a week into a community of 15,000, you can make a big difference on your positivity rate pretty quick if you take advantage of it.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I think Dr. Salgado is going to be with us next week to talk more about the vaccines and so forth, and get information out on that. Let's talk about some of the specific bills that are working their way through the House that you think are of most interest to the folks here in southeastern New Mexico and in your district.
Well, of course, if I just go down the list, everybody's aware of the repealing the abortion ban bill and its issues. There was a bill changing the liquor licenses in New Mexico that passed the House night before last. There's a horrible bill. HB 9, that's the Climate Solutions Act. There's a couple of good bills. There was a change in our graduation requirements that I talked to Danny Parker about a lot the other day. He was supportive of it, and I voted for it on the House floor, and it went through. It defines and helps define for that student that is not a college-bound student to help them have a better shot at a different career path. That's really a good bill. There's just some horrible bills out there. Felons, allowing them to vote while they're still on probation and parole. That makes you scratch your head a little bit.
Yeah, because I think most people, you could make the argument, once they have satisfied their debt to society, they've completed their sentence process or whatever, that then you might consider doing that. But
absolutely, and I know many really great stories about men and women that have gone through the system and come out and changed their lives and done great things, and I say kudos to them. But a person that's still within the jurisdiction of the courts, allowing them to vote. I mean, saying that they're responsible enough to vote, but they can't serve on a jury, they can't own a firearm. I mean, you start wondering if somebody's not trying to just get voters lined up for themselves.
Yes.
HB 33 is a great bill. It's a livestock board meat inspections bill that would allow farmers and ranchers an opportunity to get their products to market on their own without middlemen. I think that's a great bill, one that's been needed for a long time. So it's good. We heard one last night, HB 20. HB 20 is the Albuquerque sick leave policy that would be basically applied to the state. It's a horrible bill for that bill would require that if you had somebody mowing your grass and they were using your lawnmower, they were not a contract employee, you would be required to keep up with, as it's currently drafted, you'd be required to keep up with that, how many hours they worked. If they came into your house and cleaned your house, same thing. It's a horribly written bill. We got to work on that. There's the Clean Fuel Standards bill out there that is directed at oil and gas. That's bad. We had the Elizabeth Whitfield End of Life Options Act that would allow someone that was terminal, whose life expectancy was less than 6 months, and that two doctors had, a doctor and a mental health expert had agreed that they were of sound mind, that they could order a prescription from the drugstore to end their life as long as they could take it themselves. Very controversial bill. Here's another good bill. It's a statewide weather stations. Seems pretty innocuous, except HB 48 is the bill number. It's a great bill for farmers and ranchers because it would allow them to more prescriptively obtain and collect drought subsidies from the federal government, or if they had hail insurance on a crop, it would give them better data to get back, what was there. Here's a horrible bill, HB 51. It's an environmental database bill that would require everyone to put all of their data, operating data, into a central archive that was searchable. And that's basically what we have called a trial lawyer's windfall, where they would just have one point to go after all these environmental operators who had environmental permits, where they could have a central database to go figure out how to sue them. It's crazy stuff like that. But for there's some good stuff and bad stuff. There always is. It goes through a prescribed burning act. I think is on its way through. It's a good bill. I mean, you can look what the Mescalero Apaches have done in their forest, how well they maintain their forest. This is kind of taking on some of that and bring it into our forest, so we didn't have these huge forest fires. That's a great bill, a good measure that we've needed to do for a number of years. So, although I'd tell you that this legislative session has leaned way left, there have been some good bills that have come out, and I think they'll continue to be. We're down to 23 days and counting The last 10 days, just turns into mass chaos as you go to a short clock. I mean, we were in committee last night till almost 11, I guess. So the nights are going to get shorter and the days are going to get longer from here out.
There you go. What can folks back home here do to help? Is there anything that we can do down here to help you and your fellow legislators that are fighting the good fight for us there? What can we do?
Well, I think most of you do it already. I mean, being available like Denny Parker was the other day when I had questions, he stopped what he was doing and did that. Kirk Irby at Lowell's Drug, I'm always hounding on him to find out about this pharmacy bill or PBM bill, or he's always helping me on that kind of stuff. I have enjoyed great support from the community. I appreciate it, but at the same time, I realize everybody's busy. So when I call the bank or I call, the refinery or I call Peyton's outfit to find out what the thoughts are on a particular bill, it's very helpful because not one person can get their arms around all of the impacts to everybody. So having a cadre of people that you can reach out to, it's a big deal for me.
I know from time to time on different pieces of legislation, the chamber and other folks have put out, here's how you need to comment. Here's a sample or whatever to comment. Do those get read? Do those have the desired impact that you would like them to have, not just with you, but with the other legislators?
It's a mixed bag, Gene. There's some people that really watch that. To me, I think the phone calls make more of a difference because if you can actually reach out and touch that person and talk to them, it's that form letter. There was a time early on when I was getting 1,000 emails a day, and there would be just so many form letters that you just sit here and delete. I mean, they just plug up the whole system. But if you can call in and you're respectful, you are prepared for a conversation, you can make a difference. Getting involved in this process is very valid and is needed because the reason we're in the shape we are, you've heard me say this before, is too many of us sat on the sidelines too long. And there's some crazies up here that just went way left.
Yeah. Last thing I was going to ask you about I can't remember if it was you or from the Republican Party. I guess the fencing is still up around the Capitol building. Has there been any further discussion on trying to make it look less like a military compound in the middle of the green zone in Iraq?
The thought up here is it might have been to keep us in, not to keep them out. I would tell you that, we had another briefing night before last on security. The Republicans in the House and the Senate both put out a press release that I led to take that darn fence down. It's a horrible eyesore. I think it's disrespectful to the state of New Mexico. That building is the property of the people of New Mexico. The governor doesn't own it. She's just a tenant in it for 4 years. She'll come and go, and there'll be another one. But we have had a number of demonstrations, protests, and the people of New Mexico have always been, in every instance that I'm aware of, have been respectful in what they did up here. There was a knee-jerk reaction on part of the leadership and the majority to think that what happened in Washington on January the 6th was going to happen at their capital. And I just think the people in New Mexico are much different than that. Will we protest? You bet. But do we harm people? No, I don't believe that's the case.
That's good. I know in talking to Congresswoman Harrell, seeing the fencing around the Capitol building, it's kind of having a similar effect to people that visit that place. You look at that and you go, what country is this? You know, this isn't a third world dictatorship. This is America. And well, what happened on
I'll leave the house in a minute and go up there, and I'll go through 3 state police roadblocks to get into the parking garage. I mean, you'd think that I ought to have a pistol on both hips to even get in that place. So it's crazy.
All right. Well, as always, we thank you for your time. We know how busy you are, and we thank you for this update. And anytime you want to get on and let the folks know more about what's going on, you're welcome to be a part of the show.
Well, my phone number is published. If people need something that I can help them with, please have them reach out and give me a buzz.
All right. Representative Jim Townsend, thank you so much. You have a great day today,
Thank
okay?
You.
All right.
You bet. You too, Gene. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. We appreciate Representative Townsend being with us, and we will be back to talk more about this. Our guest for the other part of the